All right. Hello and welcome to Around the Horns, the show where we are talking about everything involving the University of Texas baseball program. I am your host, Aaron. I am here as always with my co host, Zach. We are recording this on Tuesday morning. No midweek baseball this week for the Longhorns. They are coming off a weird series against San Jose State where Texas won 2 out of 3. And we will, of course, be talking about that. We are going to be talking about the many Big 12 scenarios that are on the table this weekend during the final week of conference play here. Texas, of course, will be hosting West Virginia for a Thursday, Friday, Saturday set at the Dish, where there's plenty to play for there. West Virginia, top team in the Big 12, so we're going to get into all those matchups there. But before we get into any of that, I want to see, Zach, how are we doing? How are we holding up for this final week of the regular season?
Final week, yeah. So back at the Dish this weekend, and then before you know it, we'll be in Arlington for the Big 12 tournament. So yeah, the fun time is very near. The end is near for the regular season, the doldrums, as you will. And it's about to be regional time, which is the most exciting weekend of college baseball ever.
Yeah, no, I mean, I will say the regular season, towards the last couple of months, it can be like a little bit of a drag, but not this week. We are ending it with a bang, that's for sure. At the Dish, versus the team currently in first place with a lot to play for many reasons. So I'm definitely fired up for this weekend. Let's quickly go back to last weekend. It was weird. We knew the weather was going to be a factor. It turned out to be a factor. They ended up calling for a Friday doubleheader, which was interesting. But it worked out. They were able to get all 3 games in on Friday, and then two on Friday, and then one on Saturday. Zach, the first game on Friday did not exactly go as planned. San Jose State was not a team that Texas was expecting to lose to, or that many people expected Texas to lose to. But nonetheless, in game one, San Jose State pulled out a 6-4 come from behind win over the Longhorns. I will say that the San Jose State, the pitchers on the mound, at least for that first game, they had some decent stuff to where I felt like, okay, these guys are at least competing. They're hanging in there. I could see how this is giving the hitters some trouble. But even with that being said, Texas had a lead late and probably should have won that game. We'll get into the bullpen stuff here. Want to start with Lucas Gordon. He was 5 innings, 2 earned. So, not a bad outing for Lucas. But I think what stood out to me was only the 2 strikeouts against a team like San Jose State. That's a little surprising for a guy like Lucas Gordon. His strikeout numbers have been up a little bit throughout the year, but this is just another start in a row where he hasn't exactly had it all clicking out there on the mound. When we think about the middle of the season, early in the season, we're watching him every single start, and he's going up there against the righties, inside fastball, relentless, pounding the inside corner with the fastball, setting up that changeup away. The changeup away sets up the back foot slider into the righties, and that was just kind of the combo that we had gotten accustomed to seeing. And then he was dominating his lefties as usual, but that inside fastball, outside changeup, back foot slider combo, it just hasn't really been there lately. He just hasn't had the command of really, like, maybe one day he'll have the pitch of the command of the fastball, but not really the changeup. And then he just hasn't really had it all clicking. I don't know if it's late season fatigue. That would probably be the worst case scenario, because it's kind of hard to fix late season fatigue. I'm not sure what exactly is going on with Gordon. Again, it's not like he's been bad. He just hasn't been, up to the standard that he kind of set for himself with his, dominant performance early in the year.
Yeah, one thing that worries me a little bit is we saw the same kind of thing happen late last year where Lucas was heavily used, right? And he had to be because of the Tanner Witt going down, and he got fatigued towards the end of the season. You could start telling because he wasn't able to locate his pitches like he wanted to. And earlier in the season, he had talked about, hey, I was focusing a lot on my slider, so I got away from the changeup, and the changeup wasn't as sharp. I don't know if we've seen a little bit of that where he's trying to tinker a little bit too much, maybe, on his off days, if it's fatigue. But yeah, hasn't been as sharp. And to your point, right? Like he came out and he wasn't like he was giving up massive hits,
No, yeah.
but they were making solid contact from the very get-go. I mean, they were hitting deep fly balls. And so, definitely not the start you want to see. Hopefully, he gets that out of the system, or he uses that going into the West Virginia series, where he actually does get a little bit of an extra day off in some ways, and, rebound, reset, and get prepared. But yeah, that not the outing you want to see from Lucas. The way that game started, you talk about the San Jose State pitching. I thought this was going to be just a massive blowout. Of course, the Cali to Texas connection, Thomas leads off with another single. Guillemette hits a home run to bring him in. And then the second inning, they had 1, 2, 3 wild pitches pretty much in a row. And I was like, okay, like this is going to be just a disaster. And then it was kind of like he was wild enough to just be effective. And then, they kept kind of putting outs, and Texas really never was able to build off that lead. And, even when they tacked one on, that's when the 5th inning happened. That's when Lucas kind of started to really melt down. So yeah, it's not the game you wanted to see from Texas, knowing they needed a sweep to really put themselves still in a position to be where they want to be at the end of the season.
Yeah. Jonathan Clark was the pitcher for San Jose State there. He had a pretty electric pitching line, like we talked about. He had 5 walks and he had 3 wild pitches. Yeah. So he was clearly erratic the entire game, but he was able to hone it in just enough to where he was able to go 5 innings, 3 earned, and he had 7 Ks. So, sometimes the pitches were electric into the backstop, and sometimes they were electric for a strikeout. So that's just kind of what you get. We were talking about Lucas Gordon a little bit. He's actually going to be on one day. He's going to be on short rest this week, pitching
that's right. Yeah.
Friday, and then he'll be pitching on Thursday. But he only threw 74 pitches. So, not really a heavy workload for him. Maybe that'll help him going forward. We'll see. I mean, we know the schedule is just pitching. This is the time of year where pitching routines get thrown off. You go 85% of the season and you're the Friday night guy. You've got your set routine for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You know exactly what you're doing day by day. But you get to this time of the year, okay, we're playing a doubleheader on Friday, and then we're playing West Virginia on a Thursday because we got to have an extra day before the Big 12 tournament. And now, a game 1 of the Big 12 tournaments on a Wednesday, and then I'm going to be on, then who knows when I'm pitching in the regional. It could be Friday, could be Saturday, could be Sunday. This is the time of year where pitchers got to be able to adapt. They can't be so stuck on their routines. Not saying that's the case with Gordon, but it'll just be something to monitor going forward as we see how he's able to juggle that and juggle, his endurance and everything we've liked from him throughout the year. But like we said, Texas did have a chance to win. They went to Zane Morehouse, and he was great in the 6th. He was great in the 7th. And then they ran him back out there for the 8th in a 2-run lead. This is something, David Pierce has always done. When he has a guy that's pitching well, he likes to just continue to run him back out there. And then if the guy gets into trouble, he'll eventually bring in a new arm. I can always see why this is the point of view, because it's always like, okay, this guy's rolling. Do I really want to yank him? On the other side, when you've got a guy like Morehouse who's been up and down throughout the year, and you get 2 good innings out of him on a Friday to where the bullpen is rested and you've got a 2-run lead, so it's not a massive lead. It's like, okay, we've got guys available. So can we just get Morehouse out after 2 strong innings? Maybe he's feeling more confident. He can take that into his next outing. They run him out there for the 8th inning. It doesn't go as planned. I mean, of course, you can always, this is hindsight's 2020. You never know how it's going to go. But just looking back, it's, it was a tough situation there to see Morehouse kind of let it slip away there. And then Duplantier wasn't able to put out the fire. And San Jose State, man, they were, credit to them. They made the swings and they were able to get the final outs when they needed to. And they stole that first game.
Yeah. When he ran out to the top of the 8th and he immediately threw a 4-pitch walk to lead it off, I was like, okay, this is where you remove him, right? Because this can only lead to bad things. Everyone's like, oh, here we go again. And it's almost like the entire team was the same way. They're like, oh, yep, this is it. Like, we're going to blow this lead now. And you could see it from a mile away. Now he got a fly out for the next one, but the guy hit it really, really hard. So you're like, okay, like they clearly are knowing that he has to locate and he has to hit the zone. And we're just going to zero in on dead center. What does he do? He hits the next guy with a pitch. At that point, there should have been no further Morehouse. Like, you walked a guy, you hit a guy, you're in the 8th inning. You go get whatever pitcher. I don't care if it's Morehouse, Duplantier, Zane, or Lucas Gordon. I don't care who it is. Like, at that juncture in the game with a 2-run lead, and you've walked 2 guys, one via being hit, you go get the pitcher, right? And so I do put this on David Pierce and Chris Gordon and Woody to some extent, right? Like, they should have recognized, look, past history and recent history is showing us this. I don't care what the splits are. I don't care what the numbers look like. You got to go get your guy. You got to bring in a fresh arm. And sure enough, he was able to get a second out, but he also gave up a double. And then, that was when they finally brought Duplantier in. At that point, you got guys on what, second and third, and anything's going to score. So
Yeah, that's the thing. Like running him out there to start the eighth inning, like I don't really think that's that bad because
yeah,
he has been rolling, but it's a 2-run game in the eighth inning. There should be guys throwing in the bullpen before the inning starts because there's no reason not to. I mean, you've got Morehouse on the mound where he's been rolling, but he has a tendency to lose it quickly at times. There's no reason not to have someone already throwing. It shouldn't be okay, all of a sudden, there's a 4-pitch walk. Now we're going to get someone up and moving. It should be, it's just a tough situation. We'll see how maybe they'll be a little more on top of that going forward, as these games get really big. Hopefully Morehouse can still take away some good stuff he did in those first couple innings. But yeah, no, I mean, let's move on to Saturday, or not Saturday, game 2 on Friday.
Well, I think we can all agree that doubleheaders should not be played by UT. Like, this is not a doubleheader team. They need one game at a time to just have some, lounge time, get a hot dog. I don't know, something, but they do not need to play back-to-back games.
Yeah, 1-3 at doubleheader games at home this year against Oklahoma and San Jose State, which, San Jose State's, they're going to have to win their conference tournament, and Oklahoma's a bubble team. So, yeah, no, I mean, it wasn't great, but they came out in game 2 and they just completely mashed. The bats were angry. Everyone was like, where was this at game 1? I will say there was a clear drop off on the mound for San Jose State from, Clark to the rest of the series. Texas won 24-3. That is a football score. Eric Kennedy, 8 RBIs, 2 homers, career high RBIs for EK. He didn't hit the taco sign. I'll never forgive him for that, but he did mash some homers nonetheless. I mean, everyone was mashing, we can't go through every single one. The one that was cool was Cam Constantine. He got that homer there at the end of the game. The dugout went crazy. I mean, it was just like walk off in game 3 of a regional type of celebration for when Cam Constantine hit that home run. So, yeah, I mean, I'll let you hit on the reaction there and then, anything else from the offensive explosion there in game 2.
But yeah, it was funny to see because Cam Constantine had gotten that double earlier. He hit a gapper to right center, and the team was already excited, right? Like, my gosh, this is his second or third hit of his entire career at Texas. And he's a pure player. Like, this is the guy that everyone loves on the team. He's a glue guy. And when he hit that home run, I was actually worried that, like, oh shit, all these players are going to get thrown out of the game for just being bananas, because they were jumped out of the dugout. And yeah, it was really cool to see, because you could tell just in the moment that this is the guy that the team loves, that they want to see succeed. They could help wash away what happened earlier, just, an hour and a half earlier. So that was really nice to see. And you could tell after that point, yeah, it was all going to be good. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. Everyone, as you said, got into the mix. What we had homers by Constantine, Powell, Kennedy had 2, Carlson had 1. So yeah, everyone was mashing.
On the mound, LBJ, he looked good once again. He didn't absolutely dominate. He went through the order a couple times. He started to leave a few pitches up in the zone. So, even guy, we say this all the time, even when you've got the electric stuff that LBJ has, if you leave pitches up, Division I hitters, they're eventually going to make you pay. Give up, a few hits, a few runs, but he still looked good overall on the mound. I didn't have this written down, but I want to put you on the spot here a little bit. You can flip it on me if you want to. Texas has one game against, I don't know, just your run of the mill, 15 to number 20 team. Everyone's on even rest, so rest is not a factor. One game. Who you running out there? You're running out Lucas Gordon, or you're running out LeBaron Johnson Jr. right now?
As it stands right now, I'm running out LBJ.
Yep.
I honestly think, I've always been a huge proponent of LBJ from day one. I think he's finally, something has clicked, and he has realized where that release point exactly is in order to hit the bottom of the zone and not leave it up, as he's talked about. He just has it working right now. And when he has it working, he has a combination of pitches that, even a guy like Tanner Witt would struggle to replicate, where he can run it to 97 mile an hour fastball, dropping an 87 mile an hour slider, come back with a 91 splitter that looks identical to the slider. When you have pros going, I don't know what pitch that was. I mean, that should tell you something and how special that combo can be. It's just when he's right, and he's been right. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with you. I really, I love the track record of Lucas Gordon. But when you think about college baseball, especially this time of year, I think about like Cade Horton last year for Oklahoma. When a pitcher gets hot, I want to ride that pitcher, in the
Yeah.
postseason because, a hot pitcher with that kind of stuff can do all kinds of stuff for you in the postseason. So, yeah, no, I mean, I think LBJ is the guy right now. It was one walk. That was the key thing, right? Like he didn't blow away San Jose State. He gave up a handful of hits, but one walk. We know if he's not walking people more than often, he's going to be really good. Yeah. So I mean, then we go to Saturday. The Bats did it once again. Texas won 18-6. Just that San Jose State just did not have much left on the mound. These games, they weren't going to do anything crazy on the mound. They had big conference games coming up. Let's definitely talk about Tanner Witt though. I thought the fastball command was better. It wasn't all the way back to Tanner Witt fastball command, but it was better, which is what you want to see.
Yeah.
The curveball feel is definitely there. He's got it. I was thinking about this when he was pitching. Some pitchers, they have feel for their off speed. Like some pitchers, there's a lot of guys that I wouldn't put into this bucket that still have good off speed pitches, but there's that different tier of pitcher where it's like, I can wake up at 3 a.m, walk onto a mound and throw a curveball for a strike. And like, when you have those sorts of pitchers, it doesn't really matter if you get hurt. It doesn't matter, if you're on short rest, if you're on long rest. There's just a certain group of guys that I can flip a curveball in for a strike whenever I want, regardless of, what the situation is. And I just think Tanner Witt's one of those guys. He's just so comfortable throwing that curveball. So I think that's going to be the pitch from here going on out. The velo hasn't quite been all the way back to where it was. Not that we expected it to be. It's still early in his recovery, but
Yeah.
I think that's where the curveball is going to come into play quite a bit. He was able to throw some changeups, which was good to see. So yeah, I think Tanner Witt's going to be relying on that curveball, relying on that changeup, and then maybe the fastball command will tick up a little bit, or maybe the fastball velocity will tick up a little bit. Hopefully the command gets better regardless, because he can still use his fastball if he's got the command regardless of the velocity. So yeah, no, I thought overall that was a good step forward for him. He was able to pitch multiple innings. We'll get the exact numbers here, but yeah, I mean, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, in person, you could tell the spin rate and the shape and everything was really, really good on that curveball. There was a couple times where everyone was like, "Oh, there it is! Like this is the reason this guy is a future first round draft pick, right?" Like, there was obviously plenty of scouts in attendance, and after a couple of the curveballs, you could all see them like hurriedly make notes, and they're all kind of discussing amongst themselves because you could tell they're like, "Yeah, this is why we came out on a Saturday to see Texas beat the brains out of a San Jose State team." 40 pitches thrown, which is good. He continues to make each step right. And, we talked to him after the game and he said, "Look, I'm not frustrated with being limited. That's not my frustration." He's like, "My frustration is making sure that I can compete when I'm in those limited situations." Very transparently, he wasn't very happy with a couple of his outings like Kansas, where he can't locate that fastball. And, he realizes like it's a step process. He has to go through these gates to put himself up for success long term. He's not going to rush it. He's not going to do silly things. He said after the game, he's like, "Look, I probably could have gone another 10, 15 pitches and felt fine." But he's like, I completely trust the coaches. I completely trust what the plan we've put in place together. But it was good to see him compete. It was good to see him be more competitive than he's probably been the last two outings, just in terms of, he was more in the zone on his fastball. Again, he's not hitting more than 92 miles an hour on the gun, but if you've got good arm shape, you don't have to be a flamethrower at this point, because you can drop in that curveball. You can, as you said, he started to use that changeup, was sitting 82-ish. And it looks really good. So, I think, another outing against West Virginia. And then I think for me, the real thing is going to be come regional time. What does he look like 3 weeks from now? Because it could be very, very different, right? We keep talking about he's going to have one outing where he's going to go out and throw a fastball and be like, "Oh, there it is. There's my release point. There's the way it comes out of my hand. There's the way I want my footing and everything to gel." And people should watch out. Like, the talent's still there. So,
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the 3 innings was the big part, because that just means he was able to go through a full warm up throughout the game, pitch an inning, go sit in the dugout, warm back up for the second inning, go through that inning, goes back, sit back in the dugout, warm back up for the third. That's just a different process when you're in the recovery. That's just a different kind of cycle for the arm to go through. So for him to be able to clear all those and, presumably feel good after the game going into this next outing, I thought that was a big step. They went to Travis Staley once again after Witt was done. Staley was able to go 4 innings, 2 earned runs, 3 walks. So not great, but 4 strikeouts. I thought overall, pretty solid Travis Staley performance. Nothing too much to complain about there. It wasn't, you're not going to get that dominant, super reliever appearance that we saw in Kansas every single time, but it was a pretty solid Travis Staley outing. So I think that's going to continue to be the plan going forward. We'll see what they've got in store when the schedules do get mixed around and routines kind of do get jumbled, like we talked about. And I think the only thing I'm really looking to point out from the San Jose State series is Dylan Campbell, man, 30-game hit streak. We are still going strong. This thing is still happening. I don't know when it's going to end. Obviously, we got a big test coming up against West Virginia. They've got some great pitchers, but this has been quite the ride, man. He's 5 away from tying the all-time Big 12 record. This is pretty exciting stuff, and you don't see this very often. I mean, obviously, but like this is really cool to witness.
Yeah. So I'll put you on the spot now. This was a question that was posed during the Saturday game when he'd already got his 30th, hit or his hit for 30 games in a row. We said, what's more impressive in today's game? The 30 hits in a row or 30 games in a row with a hit, or Melendez's 32 home runs last season, knowing that there might be 5 guys that could potentially break Melendez's home run record this season alone right now. So with that in mind, what do you think is more impressive?
Yeah. So obviously, I think the 30-game hitting streak is more rare. Like that's just something you see less often.
Yeah.
And so does that make it more impressive because like you obviously got to do it 30 games in a row? I don't know. I mean, yeah, that's a weird one. I don't know. Like sitting, like covering both teams and like being there every single day and being locked in every single game. Like I was more blown away by the Ivan stuff because it was just so like in your face. Like this guy's just hitting 450-foot bombs. But I mean, just from the fact that like you're just not going to see 30-game hit streaks in today's game of baseball, that's definitely the more rare accomplishment. So yeah, I mean, I think maybe by the definition that could be more impressive, but I was more like, the Ivan stuff still, like I was more like on the edge of my seat and just blown away, like pitch after pitch. So I think that's how I kind of think about it. What do you think?
I actually go towards the DC route, right? Just because it is, we talk about there's 3 outcomes, right? You're going to strike out, you're going to walk, hit, whatever. But the thing of it is, like, to your point, and what I think most fans will go to Melendez because it was so exciting, right? Hitting a home run is that excitement. Yep. It's that factor of holy crap, Melendez just, killed another baseball's life, just ruined another pitcher's day. But DC's just in there grinding every day. Doesn't matter if he's 0 for 3, he comes up with a hit. He's 0 for 2, comes up with a hit. He's struck out twice, he comes up with a hit. Like to have that mindset and that ability to go in day out and just crank out a hit is pretty crazy. Now, Melendez also went like 24 or 25.
That's what I was about to say. He had like a 22 gamer. Yeah.
So I don't want people to think I'm saying DC's a better hitter. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying for me, day in and day out, it's crazy impressive. So yeah, it's something else to watch. And I think most people had a mixed reaction of the first thing is like, well, no, home runs. And like, well, wait a minute, thinking about it, that's something else. So yeah, it's something.
Yeah, I don't know when this thing's going to end, man. Like I was thinking, like, I mean, he's got 3 home games at the Dish. It'll be against a good West Virginia staff. So, I mean, obviously this thing could end at any moment in time. Then I'm thinking like maybe he'll get stuck with like a 9 a.m. game in Arlington and that could throw something off. But then it's just like when this guy's in the box, he's got his approach. He's got his super short swing. He's not been chasing too much out of the zone. Like, I don't know, man. Like I feel like when it ends, it's probably going to end because he went 0 for 2 with 2 lineouts and he drew a couple walks. I don't think it's going to go down like with an 0 for 4 or an 0 for 5.
That'd be a very DC stat line to go 0 for 2 with like 2 walks and 3 steals or something silly, right? It'd just be
that's the hardest thing about it because it's like, we talked about pitching in college baseball is just down across the board. There's so many walks. So it's like you figure one of these games, DC's just going to get walked like 3 times, but man, he's just not missing his pitches when he gets them. And it's been very helpful for the Texas offense, which suddenly, man, it's kind of a deep lineup. I mean, I know it was San Jose State and Kansas and all that, but I don't know. I feel, you have to feel pretty good about the state of the Texas lineup right now. All right, let's move on a little bit. Let's talk about some Big 12 standings before we get to the West Virginia. Zach, you want to take the floor here with some scenarios and some, just a little update on the big picture stuff. And you don't have to run through them all, but I think the big ones to hit on is, how can Texas win the conference and be the number one seed in Arlington? How far could they fall? And then, how do West Virginia and potentially Oklahoma State, come away with this thing? I think those are maybe the real big ones we want to hit on. And then any other thing you want to get into, go for it.
Yeah, so I mean, to start off with the standings where they're at, West Virginia is in first place at 15-6. Then you got Oklahoma State at 13-8. Texas is at 12-9. K-State's at 12-9. TCU's at 11-10. Texas Tech is at 10-11. Oklahoma's at 10-11. Then you have Kansas at 7-14, and then you have Baylor at 6-18. Just right off Baylor, no one cares. They're done with conference play. They missed the tournament. They missed the Big 12 conference. Their season's over. I don't care that they're playing 3 games this weekend. Does not matter. That's just for funsies, right? Legitimately, there is a scenario in which Texas could finish anywhere from first place all the way down to 7th place. Yesterday, I mapped out a scenario where if things were to fall just perfectly, 6 of the 9 teams in the Big 12 conference could all finish at 13-11. And if you read the tiebreaker rules, I'm pretty sure that a better way to figure out who gets second place is just playing Yahtzee or Shoots and Ladders, Monopoly, something other than their tiebreaker rules, because you'll need to build a calculator and you'll need someone that knows physics to figure it out, right? But, the most likely scenario is, in my opinion, West Virginia is going to come to town and win the series. That they're the better team, in my opinion. They have the better pitching, more consistent hitting, which puts Texas at 13-10 overall. I'm sorry, 13-11 overall. Sorry.
Yep.
I don't see Oklahoma State getting swept by Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma State will go into Norman and win the series. I think Oklahoma will steal a game. So that'll put Oklahoma at 11-13. And that's going to pretty much lock up. A series win locks up second place for Oklahoma State at this point. The other big matchup then becomes K-State hosting TCU, because K-State right now is at 12-9 and TCU's at 11-10. TCU's fighting for its life. K-State's suddenly thinking, hey, maybe we can improve our position just a little bit. So there's a potential there if K-State wins the series that they obviously pass Texas and get into that 3rd spot. At the same token, TCU's got the talent. They could go win that series, but Texas will hold the tiebreaker. So, I mean, there's so many different scenarios. The other one where thankfully Texas holds a tiebreaker is if Texas Tech were to sweep Kansas in Lubbock, which is not unheard of considering it's a launching pad for Gavin Cash and the gang. They suddenly finish at 13-11. Now Texas holds the tiebreaker again, but just to illustrate, like, there's so many different moving pieces still, even going to the last weekend, that, it's one game, honestly, for West Virginia. They need one game and they win the title. Because they hold the tiebreaker over Oklahoma State. But outside of that, it's going to be a jumbled mess to figure out who gets the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, even 6th place seeding in the Big 12 tournament.
Yeah, let's talk about the most fun scenario, even if it's not the most realistic, though, which is Texas sweeps and then Oklahoma State wins 2 games. So then we have West Virginia, Oklahoma State, and Texas all at 15 wins, all tied for first. What does Texas win? Texas wins that one, correct? Or does Oklahoma State come out on top there?
So Texas would lose out because of the tiebreaker rules. Oklahoma State would win the conference title because, if I remember correctly, Oklahoma State not only holds the head-to-head.
Did they win the West Virginia series too?
Oh, actually, no. West Virginia beat Oklahoma State. West Virginia has only lost 2 series all year long, to Kansas and Georgia Southern, which, okay.
Sure.
That's electric. What's interesting, though, is even though Texas lost the series to Oklahoma State, they won the very first game. And in one of the tiebreakers in the round robin, it is if you won the first game of the series. So I don't know. That's a really good question. I'd have to figure out and do some do some conundrum math
That's
here.
got to be one of the secondary tiebreakers though, because yeah, I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't be doing this live, but I feel like if they all end up 15-9 and Texas won the series against West Virginia, Oklahoma State won the series against Texas, but West Virginia won the series against Oklahoma State, then yeah, we're going to second and third tiebreakers. So yeah, we'll have to get back to the people on that one. I mean, this is obviously a Texas sweeps West Virginia scenario that is unlikely, but that's the most fun. That's the most fun scenario for me. So yeah, we'll see about that. Moral of the story: root against Oklahoma State this weekend. I think that would be that's the easiest way to go about it.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest thing, the scenarios that you want to see this happen this weekend is Texas wins 2 of 3 at a minimum against West Virginia. You want to see Oklahoma State drop at a minimum 1 game. I don't think Texas is going to catch them, but you want to see them drop at least 1 game against Oklahoma. And then it doesn't matter whether it's K-State or TCU, but you want both of them to avoid a sweep. Realistically, in my opinion, though, you want TCU to win 2 games because that would negate the possibility of either one of them passing Texas in the standings. So, yeah. And then, of course, Texas Tech could go sweep Kansas. If they do, Texas has to win a minimum of 1 game against West Virginia. So
stay ahead of Tech. Yeah.
Yeah. So, root for Kansas, root for Oklahoma, root for, I guess TCU to win the series is the best case scenario.
All righty. There you have it. We will definitely be updating that. Follow us. Definitely keep up with all our stuff on Orange Bloods. Follow us on Twitter. We will make sure we get all those scenarios sorted out as they're happening live over the next couple of days. Zach, what do you want to go to next? You want to go back, throw it back to our preseason stuff, or you want to preview? You want to talk about the Mountaineers?
Yeah, I think we should take a look at some of our preseason preview and predictions that we made. So let's start with overall record, because you still are in play to nail it, right? You predicted 37-19, which would mean a series win over West Virginia to finish it up. Travis Gailey picked 39-17, so he's a bit out of the running. And then I picked 38-18. So look, I'm looking at you, Horns, to get me a sweep to pull through the victory here. But yeah, I mean, possibly you could get it, or obviously none of us will get it. So
yeah, no, I mean, a couple of things stand out there. I think the first thing is it's just funny because we were all pretty much in the same range, and we're all going to be pretty close to the ending total, which is just funny because this Texas season, sometimes it's been oh, this team is a complete disaster. And then other times it was holy crap, they've won 17 games in a row and just so many ups and downs. But at the end of the day, they're kind of going to end in the range where we all expected. And then the second thing that stands out there is that I was the most correct. So that's potentially, we'll see. You can still hit it on the money with the sweep.
That's true.
The stakes could be high there going into
the other predictions we had were.
Were there other predictions? Are we sure we need to talk about? I feel like
the other predictions. I think so. Yeah.
Huh. Okay. I thought that one was the most important though.
So top hitting by average, you had Kennedy, Travis had Daly, and I had Porter Brown. So by law of averages, because Porter Brown has the closest to the lead, which is Powell, I'll just take the win on that one just by edict here.
Not over yet. Not over yet.
But it's not over yet. That is very true. Most home runs, we all chose Dylan Campbell, which at the time was a pretty, I think, clearly evident choice. Here comes Eric Kennedy with 15 home runs on the season. So I don't think anyone really saw that one coming. But hey, I love the 17 changes he's made to his stance in the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, so. Wait a second. I just pulled this up. Porter Brown is hitting 325 and Eric Kennedy is hitting 324. You are not claiming the win on that quite yet. There is 3 games to play, and they are 1 point away.
Numbers, my friend.
We're gonna wait and see on that
one. Stolen bases. Again, we all went with Eric Kennedy. Maybe we should have just flip-flopped our home runs and our stolen bases. But
yeah,
Campbell leads the way by a large margin. He's got 24, which he's only gotten thrown out once this year, which it's pretty damn impressive, considering he's stolen third base a couple of times. Team MVP. So this is the one that's really interesting to me. We all chose Dylan Campbell thinking that he was going to hit a lot of home runs, just be that offensive cog. I think you could go a number of ways with
Yeah,
this one.
who is the team MVP? That is, yeah. I mean, you could
You
go a
know,
number of ways.
by numbers, Powell is the better hitter overall. Full offensive complement. Dylan's got one more home run and like 20 something stolen bases more. I don't know. This is a pretty good one. I think it's going to come down to the wire about just who is the better MVP choice. A sneaky suspicion is, or a sneaky guy that you could even throw in there is Garrett Gilmet. The
Yeah,
amount
I was
of
going to
runs
say
that
I
he's
would.
batted in is pretty damn impressive, considering he's at 55 and the other two are 40 and 39. So it could be a three-way race right to the very end.
Yeah, I was going to say you can make it easily an argument for Guillemette back there because he's got the highest OPS on the team right now, slightly above Powell. He's got the most RBIs by far, and he is locked down. He's been really solid behind the plate, which is very, very important. I mean, obviously, Peyton Powell came in and locked down third base defensively, which was an issue early in the year. And then Campbell has been money in right field, pretty much from the jump. So they've all been good defensively, but catcher's probably the most important defensive position of those three. Guillemette has the highest OPS and he has the most RBIs. Dylan Campbell feels like the MVP, just being the guy lately and just being in the middle of all of it and stealing the bases and just like providing so much consistency. But yeah, I mean, you've got a really impressive 3-horse race there. And then, of course, you've got Eric Kennedy also. He's had some ups and downs, but his OPS is over 1,000 and he's leading the team in homers. So yeah, I mean, there was a number of ways you can go with that one, but it's definitely interesting to see. Like, it's always good to have like 4 or 5 legitimate MVP candidates on the same team. That's a good sign.
And that was one of the things we talked about on this team, right? There wasn't going to be a Melendez. This was going to be a group effort. You're going to have a group of guys that are going to have to lead. So,
yep.
Here's where things get a little interesting. Pitching MVP. Aaron went with Zane Morehouse.
I think I meant to type LBJ and autocorrect. I think it autocorrected LBJ to Zane Morehouse. I don't know how that works, but I'm pretty sure that's what I recall.
Travis and I both went with Lucas Gordon. Yeah, I think you can make the argument that Lucas Gordon's MVP. I think you could also, depending on the way the season finishes up, I think you could also make the argument that LBJ is right there with him. But I think the body of work is probably a little bit better for Lucas at this point.
No, it's definitely Gordon for me, just because it's been there from the jump. I mean, he carried them through a stretch where he was the lone guy, where LBJ was still pitching good, but like you couldn't count on 6 or 7 innings. So there was a very long stretch where like they had to have 6 or 7 good innings from Lucas Gordon, and he gave it to him pretty much every single time. So yeah, I think Gordon's the right pick for pitching MVP.
Yeah, I was just looking like pure numbers wise, but yeah, as you said, like Lucas was the man, right? The next one was returning player that we were most excited to see. Again, you went with Zane Morehouse. I'll just assume it was a typo.
Yeah.
Travis went with Mitch Daly. I assume he was drunk or it was a typo. I will claim excitement on this one. LeBaron Johnson Jr., Mr. LBJ himself. I've been on the LBJ train for a while, ever since he decommitted from Florida. So yeah, that was cool to see. And then the other one that I'll take a lot of credit for was new player most excited to see. You and Travis both went Jalen Flores, and not that there's anything wrong. I think future extremely bright, but I did go with Jared Thomas, Mr. Snake Farm himself. So.
Yep. Hey, I mean, the thing about those last two is, they're subjective questions. They're who we're most excited to see. Those are just personal opinions. Those aren't, hard, fast predictions, but I mean, you definitely nailed it with those LBJ and Jared Thomas. Those are definitely two of my favorite guys to watch right now. So that is definitely the case, but yeah, it's always fun to revisit those. We will see maybe if they change over these last couple of games, but yeah, man, it's always interesting and something to keep in mind going forward. Preseason stuff can get into our brains, but you never know. You got to wait and see how the games actually go. But all right, let's jump ahead to West Virginia here. Thursday is the opener, not Friday. Important to remember. If you show up on Thursday, be ready for baseball because there will be people there. There will be Mountaineers. There will be Longhorns. Most importantly, left-handed pitcher Ben Hampton. He has been their game one guy all year. He'll be the Thursday night guy this week. He hasn't been dominant. It's anything crazy, but he has been super, super, super solid. That's just kind of a theme I noticed with this West Virginia pitching staff. Ben Hampton, man, he goes out there. He's been 6 or 7 innings almost every single time out, and he's been 2 earned runs to 4 earned runs almost every single time out. He's just been solid, man. It doesn't matter who he's going up against. It doesn't matter home, road. He's been good. He struggled against Texas last year, but when I've been looking back to see how people did against Texas last year, I kind of just throw it out the window because it's like, yeah, both offenses were really like the offense was really good last year and it's really good this year, but it's just completely different guys. It's like a little bit of a different style of offense. So I don't really take much away from those struggles last year against Texas. But yeah, man, he's a lefty, so gonna be dealing with that again. There's a lot of I don't have the specific splits. Do you have access to the specific splits? I've never been able to find those.
We can get them, but not just off the top. Yeah.
A lot of people still are like concerned every time there's a lefty on the mound. I don't really feel that way anymore because it's like Peyton Powell is better against lefties. We know that. We've seen those numbers. He's better against lefties. Eric Kennedy has handled lefties decently well this year. Porter Brown handles lefties well. And then the right-handed bats have come along strong. So I'm not to the point anymore where I see a lefty on the mound and I'm like panicking because Texas can handle these lefties pretty well. But we'll see how it goes against Ben Hampton. Friday, Blaine Traxel. He was a transfer from the West Coast. This guy, Zach, he has been an absolute horse. I pulled up his game logs and his box scores. This man has gone over 105 pitches 8 different times this year. He had a stretch where he threw 4 complete games in a 5-start stretch. So like 5 consecutive starts, he threw 4 of them were complete games. He's got 5 complete games on the year. He is going to go out there. He's going to throw 128 pitches. It's probably going to be for 7 or 8 innings, and he is going to completely save the bullpen. And it's not like they're just going out there and letting him wear it. He's been pitching well in the process. He's got solid numbers. So yeah, that Friday game, I mean, be ready for a lot of Blaine Traxel because he's been solid. And then Saturday, the game 3, that's where there's going to be some question marks because they've been going with the righty Robbie Porco, but he's been going really short. I was watching their game against Texas Tech on Sunday. He got no outs and they yanked him from the game. He didn't look like he got hurt. It was just like quick leash. He was struggling. So I don't even know if they're going to start him. We'll see. You might have the matchups by the time we're listening to this, but game 3 will be more up in the air for them. Their closer is Reed Carlson. He's got 7 saves on the year, I believe. He's been very good. They'll go to him for 2 or 3 innings if needed. So he's like definitely their number 1 guy out of the bullpen. But yeah, I mean, games 1 and games 2, they really know who they are on the mound with those 2 guys. And then, the last game we'll kind of see before they kind of bridge the gap there to Carlson on the mound.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that stuck out to me was, as you mentioned, Ben Hampton has a history against Texas where Texas has done well against him. Well, what really stood out to me is the 2 teams he struggled against has been Kansas and Baylor. That just seems weird. Like he gave up 7 hits and 4 runs against Kansas in 3.2 innings, and he gave up 7 runs and 4 hits in 6 innings against Baylor. It seems a little strange to suffer against the lower rated teams in the conference, right? But yeah, like you said, like he's Mr. Consistent. 6 innings, he's going to give up 5 to 7 hits, and he's going to give up 3 to somewhere in there earn runs. I feel like the thing with him is if Texas, they're going to have to really be patient. They're going to have to drive up that pitch count. If it takes Powell going up there and fouling off 10 pitches every single at bat, by all means, like do it, right? It's he's not a guy that's gotten a lot of strikeouts except for his outing against K-State where he got 10, but it's, I don't know, just Mr. Consistent. I know in talking to Texas, they well know Ben Hampton's name. They've got all the scouting tape on him. So it'd be interesting to see if he's done anything different this year than he did last year that, moves the needle at all, right? But Blaine Traxel, that guy, like you said, he is a horse. 5 complete games.
Unreal.
And he almost got his 6th against Texas Tech. He went 8 innings, giving up 6 hits and 2 earned runs. So yeah, Texas better just, I guess, drive up his pitch count. But even then, he's just going to continue to roll out there and be like, I'm back, I'm here again. He's just that guy that won't go away. So
yeah, I'm going to go talk to him after the game on Friday. You guys can all be over there talking to LBJ and, probably Gary Guillemette. And I'm going to be on the other side. I just want to ask this guy about his arm. I just want to poke around on his biceps, be like, what is this made of? Like, is there a popsicle? Like, is there Jello? Like, what is the deal here with this guy's arm? Because yeah, man, it's been impressive.
And, if you look at his numbers too, like he's given up the most home runs on the team. but his whip is 109, which is really, really good. And his strikeout to walk ratio, 19-68, is really, really good. So it's just, I don't know if he's got a funky movement. I haven't watched a lot of him, but yeah,
He's given up
he
the
also
most
was a
homers on the
jokester.
team because he's thrown 40% of the pitches for the pitching staff. That's why he's giving up the most homers.
And he is a jokester too. He got suspended for the earlier game this weekend because he wore in celebration a cone on his head and acted like a minion walking down the dugout outside of the dugout. And so he got
He got suspended for that?
Yeah.
By who? By the team or by the NCAA?
By the umpire.
That's unreal.
No celebrations outside the dugout now. So yeah, just he's a guy you want to talk to because he's a character.
I suppose if you're going to get suspended, I'd rather be suspended for like acting like a minion with a cone on my head, just other than like telling an umpire, hey, like you're having a bad day back there. I guess that's a more fun way to get suspended.
Which during the final game against Texas Tech, that is what happened to West Virginia's assistant coach. He had some choice words. He got thrown out. Another assistant coach almost got thrown out because he put his hands on the umpire. It was a whole ordeal at the end of the Texas Tech West Virginia game this past
This is going to be a great series. This is going to be a great weekend.
I'm expecting a lot of talking if you're nearby the field.
Yeah, for sure. All right, you want to hit on some of their offensive guys? I definitely just wanted to. I mean, we need to hit on JJ Weatherholt. I mean, he has been the guy. I mean, we just talked about all the great players Texas has and all those MVP candidates. None of them are going to win Big 12 Player of the Year, unfortunately, because Weatherholt has been unreal for the Mountaineers all year.
Yeah. JJ Weatherholt, he's the do-it-all sophomore second baseman. He hit 308 as a freshman, which is pretty good in the Big 12. He's hitting 466 on the season as a sophomore, which also leads the NCAA, by the way. His OPS is a ridiculous 1.359. He's hit 15 home runs. He's stolen 35 bags, 56 RBIs. The dude's hit 21 doubles. He's a monster at the plate. He's seeing beach balls. He's not someone I'd want to pitch if I were Zane Morehouse. Or realistically any pitcher at this point. I mean, he's just locked in, and he's been locked in all season. He obviously leads the team, but there's not a massive drop off. But what I did find interesting is if you look at the numbers wise, top to bottom for West Virginia, when you compare it to Texas, West Virginia has what, 1, 2, 3, 4 guys hitting above 300. Texas has 6 or 7. And it's not that the bottom of the lineup is bad for West Virginia. It's just they don't produce at the same consistency that Texas does. So, they've hit 72 home runs, which is just north of where Texas is on the season. The guys to look out for with the power are Caleb McNeely, obviously JJ Weatherholt, and Grant Hussey. Hussey has a great last name. Anytime you're at the plate mashing home runs, your name's Hussey, you're doing something right. But probably the other guy to look out for is Tevin Tucker. He gets on base, he steals a lot. Landon Wallace gets on base, steals a lot, and Braden Berry gets on base and steals a lot. Those guys all have on base percentages at or north of 400. So they get on base and they like to run. So that's definitely something that Texas is going to face this weekend, and Garrett Gimmiott needs to be prepared. LBJ has to be cognizant of holding those pitchers. Lucas does a fairly good job of holding the runners, but once again, defensively behind the plate is going to be really, really important for Gilmet.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was comparing the offensive numbers and the pitching numbers, when I was thinking about making my predictions as we move into that here, but West Virginia just kind of has a slight edge everywhere. It's like they're a little better on offense. Their bullpen just seems a little deeper. Their starters work a little bit deeper into games. So it's just like West Virginia's just been the better team all year long, which I think that makes a really interesting series to pick because we feel pretty good about the Texas offense right now. We feel really good about LeBaron Johnson Jr. Then we'll see about Lucas Gordon, but this is at the dish where you would like to say Texas is better at the dish. Hasn't totally been the case recently. You get swept by Oklahoma. You drop one against San Jose State. They haven't been dominant there. You still feel better playing at the dish than you do in Morgantown. So I'm going Texas 1-2. This was a bit of a tough one for me. At the end of the day, I do think West Virginia is just the better team overall. I think if Texas is going to win this series, it sounds simple, but Lucas Gordon and LBJ are going to have to just outpitch Hampton and Traxel, because that's kind of where I think if you let Hampton go 6 or 7, then you let Traxel go 7 or 8, you're just not going to score a ton of runs off those guys, most likely. So that just means you're going to need Lucas Gordon matching or out pitching Hampton. You're going to need LBJ, going deep into the game. That's the most important thing. Like, not only do they need Gordon, do they need LBJ to be really good this weekend? They need them to go deep in the game, because the bullpen can be hit or miss. And the bullpen has been hit or miss against Baylor, against Kansas, against San Jose State. This is the best offense in the Big 12, probably. So this is going to be a different animal when you talk about throwing in, you talk about not wanting to walk the leadoff hitter. Yeah, you don't want to walk the leadoff hitter against Baylor. You really don't want to walk the leadoff hitter against West Virginia in a big game where they're going to be fired up trying to clinch a conference. So this is where you need Lucas Gordon to go deep into a game, LBJ deep into a game. I just think it's a lot to ask of those guys against a really good West Virginia team. So I'm going to go West Virginia wins 2 out of 3, but I'm ready for anything, man. I think this is going to be a fun weekend. I am prepared for all outcomes.
Yeah, I also have 1 and 2 on the weekend. I just think West Virginia is a better team overall. I think Texas matches up well with them in certain areas, right?
Yeah.
And I would not be surprised if Texas came away with a series win. That would not surprise me at all. Just because, like I mentioned, West Virginia has really 4 good hitters at the top, and then it starts to fade pretty quickly down the line. But I went back and I looked at a lot of their numbers. How did Kansas beat West Virginia? Well, to start off with, J.J. Weatherholt went 0 for 4, and Braden Berry went 1 for 5. You got to score early. That's paramount to get into the bullpen of West Virginia and just making them, force them to use those arms or high leverage situations. You got to score early. And then, it's keeping Weatherholt at bay. If you keep Weatherholt at bay, I mean, that's a lot of their offense, right? And so the same thing with Kansas' second win over them. Weatherholt went 1 for 4. Braden Berry went 0 for 4. Dwayne Leonard went 1 for 5. So if you can keep those top 3 guys at the top of the lineup, if you can hold them to just a couple of hits on the day, which is not easy, obviously, because they consistently win, you have a shot. Now, I mentioned something earlier, but West Virginia's only lost 2 series all season long. Ironically, both of them, I believe, have. Oh, look, so they lost the first series of the year against Georgia Southern on the road, and then they lost at home to Kansas. That's it. They've won all their other series. So that's the other piece, that they've just been very consistent. Even when they lose maybe that first game, they're able to bounce back. So I don't see it, but I'm here for it. Like I said, I could see a number of different ways this could go.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's going to be fun. There's a lot to play for, obviously. I think ultimately, if Texas goes 1 and 2, they're probably going to end up 3rd or 4th, would be my prediction, just based on all the different scenarios. There's a scenario where it goes poorly and they end up down at 5, 6, 7. We'll see what happens. I know we've already talked about a lot of the other series. You can run through them quickly if you want, hit on some stuff around the country before we get out of here.
Yeah, so Texas obviously is hosting West Virginia. The other series to watch, Oklahoma State's at Oklahoma, Bedlam. You want to hope for Bedlam, right? We're rooting for Oklahoma State this weekend.
Rooting for Oklahoma, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Oklahoma. TCU's at Kansas State, which is always interesting. K-State's not the easiest place to play in Manhattan. And then Kansas is at Texas Tech. Again, Kansas, the Jayhawks have to come away with a win. Just one that really will seal Texas Tech's fate. So I'm all in on Shogunaga. I hope he hits, 14 hits and 4 home runs and just bashes Texas Tech. But that's what's going on around the Big 12. The series to watch, there's a lot of big time matchups, which is going to really directly impact those national seeds and what the top 8 look like. Arkansas, who's number 2 overall now, is playing 12 Vanderbilt, who's scuffled as of late. Florida's hosting or is playing number 19 Kentucky, who's looked really, really strong. South Carolina is playing Tennessee. And then you got the Miami Duke series. Duke is really pushing hard for not just hosting, but maybe sneaking into being a top 8 host. And then Oklahoma State, obviously, we talked about is traveling to Oklahoma. And so there's some big series around the Big 12 and around the nation.
Gosh, SEC is just so loaded. I mean, just the first 3 series off the bat, it's like Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Florida, Kentucky, South Carolina, Tennessee. Like, those are like College World Series matchups. It's just so impressive.
And that doesn't even get into the fact that LSU, who was the number one team, has lost back-to-back series now to Auburn and Mississippi State, who were not exactly at the top of the SEC. So it's everyone's game.
Florida definitely stands out, man. Florida's been a wagon lately. They have got some dudes on the mound, and we know they can hit homers with Caglione and all those other guys they've got. But yeah, Florida is definitely a team to keep an eye on as we head into the postseason here. I'd be surprised if they do not make it to Omaha at this point, is what I would say. But yeah, no, I mean, it's going to be a good weekend around the country. This will be the final regular season. Then we get into all the conference tournament madness. We will see how all the regional stuff works out. Zach, I know that I feel like I'm in tune with the fan base. They're going to want to know, is there any possibility left of hosting? Do you think a miraculous sweep opens that door back up, or do you think that that loss to San Jose State was the final nail in the coffin, unfortunately?
Yeah, so the biggest problem is just, again, it's going to be RPI, right? That loss, and even the wins back to back, they put Texas down at 31 in the RPI.
It's a lot of ground to make up, considering that they don't really adjust too much for the conference tournament.
Exactly. So West Virginia is at 17 overall. I don't see them being able to surpass Oklahoma State or West Virginia without some massive help. Texas sweeping and Oklahoma taking the series. I don't see them gaining enough ground to be able to host at this point.
Yeah, I just keep going back to, they didn't really factor in the conference tournament that much last year. That's just kind of how it was. And they didn't even factor in like winning the Big 12 regular season. It was just so much RPI. Like at CCU, they won it last year and they didn't host just because the RPI wasn't as good. So just got to keep that in mind. But we'll see where Texas ends up. But yeah, to keep track of all that, you follow us on Twitter. You can follow me at Aaron Little OB. You can follow Zach at the Dish. If you're watching this on YouTube, like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts, you can rate us there, give us a review. Check out all of our stuff on orangebloods.com. All kinds of great stuff going on over there. We will be at the Dish all weekend long, so that will be fun. Everyone come out to the Dish if you can. It will definitely be a good weekend of baseball. Hopefully we get some good weather. And then, should expect some good pitching. We got some of the best hitters in the conference going at it. So this is probably, the best weekend of the year. This is probably the weekend I've been the most excited for all season. So yeah, with that, I think we're going to get out of here and we will be back with a lot to talk about next week.
Sounds good. Hook 'em.
Subscribe to the channel. Do it now.